Okay, guys, I know Karen is out in Palm Springs. She had a wedding this afternoon, so I'm not sure if she's going to be joining us or not. So I'm going to give it another minute or so, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, guys, can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right, so the first scene we've got coming up, of course, is the train set, which I believe Karen is going to be directing. Yes.
Right.
All right, so I don't know, have either of you guys discussed with her what her thoughts are on how we're gonna block that or shoot it?
No, not yet.
Andres, have you spoken at all with her about it?
No.
All right, so the kind of what we talked about after the casting last week is that we're going to try to keep this pretty this setup fairly simple. I don't think it calls for a lot of complicated stuff going on, uh, which will help get us through our very first day as painlessly as possible. So let me share this overhead diagram with you guys. So give me a second. All right, can you guys see that? Let
So,
me
too zoomed,
zoom
too
in
zoomed
a
out.
little. What's that?
Too zoomed out.
Can you see that, guys?
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right, so this is just a simple overhead diagram of the physical layout of the set. So we're going to have two flats on this side, two flats on this side, and then we'll have these two flats here, but the in the center is going to be a window with a plantation shutter, right? Let me show you the front view um, of the set. All right, and so this is just a basic rendering. This may not look exactly like this, but this is the basic idea of what we're going to have. So we'll have this here with the two chairs on opposite sides. We've got the window in the center, and then of course we've got the wall here. Now, as it is now, it's 144 inches, which is just over 11 feet. And so that's basically the amount of space that we're dealing with. Um, any questions or thoughts about that?
No, it looks nice.
Right. And so I think the hold on a second. I think the game plan, and I'm going to go back to sharing the other set, the overhead view, so we can talk about camera placement and angles and so on. All right, and so is that big enough for you guys to be able to see basically?
Yeah.
Okay, let me see if I can bring up any kind of. Oh, you know what? Let me undo that. Let me get rid of that. Let's try an arrow. Okay. All right. So I think that what is going to work most logically is this will be our master camera position right here. Yes. And so
Okay.
we would put why is it not letting me type? All right, well, this will be our master camera position. And I think what we're looking at right now is probably going to be, for the distance that we've got and the size of that space, I'm thinking probably the 50 millimeter, which will give us enough lens to get coverage from here to here without shooting off of our set. And so then that gives us our master. And then for our over the shoulders, then we'll do an over the shoulder here. And then an over the shoulder here. And then that keeps us, this is our, right here is our 180-degree line. Yes? Everybody follow that?
Right.
Right. And so that allows us to stay on this side of the line. And I think what will work for this scene is essentially do the medium shots, and then when we get to the to that beat that we talked about at the very beginning of when we were talking about breaking down our set, our scenes, that moment when Von Ensign, when Newlander realizes that Von Ensign is going to Tempest, and he realizes that that's probably not a good thing, right? We talked about the fact that that's a moment of realization. And so at that point, I think that being a little bit closer, so the coverage for this scene, I think, is really pretty straightforward. The only thing that we need to be thinking about, or one of the things that we want to make sure that we're going to plan for in our shot list, are the detail shots of, excuse me, of Newlander handing him the note, and then Von Ensign putting it in his vest pocket. Yes.
Right.
Okay. So I want to open it up to you guys, and I want you to give me your thoughts in terms of this particular scene. I know it's Karen's scene, but in terms of our overall intent with the whole film, what do you think? Is there anything that we haven't thought of in terms of covering this real simple scene?
I would just say maybe an extreme close-up of maybe Von Ensign's eyes peering just over the newspaper as he brushes them off with one of the answers.
Okay. Yeah, that's definitely
something I like that.
we could think about in terms of establishing his emotional mindset at the very beginning. And that would be something that we would do in these over the shoulders. It would just be another setup. We could either go to a longer lens, which would probably be my choice, or we can move the camera closer. My choice would be to go to the longer lens because it gives us a nicer depth of a better depth of field, or a shorter depth of field, which allows us to isolate Von Ensign a little bit better. So that's definitely something that we can put on our shot list, but it'll go towards the end of our shooting because that'll be one. We're going to move in for. You always want to shoot from wide to narrow. You'll want to go from the wide shots first, and then we move into the closer shots because it's easier to light it that way, and to maintain lighting continuity. And then so that would be one of the later shots that we would get. It would probably be the next to the last setup for the day, and then the last setup would be to get those detail shots that we need of the note and him putting it in his pocket. Any other thoughts? That's a good suggestion. Anything else you can think of?
I think everything's pretty well covered.
Okay, and so a little bit later on, I'm going to be meeting with the DPs, but the thoughts that I'm, or the way that I think that the lighting is going to play out for this will be pretty straightforward. I think we need to go with an overhead instrument of some sort. We want to go with probably like our chicken coop, or maybe a coffin light or something like that. So we're going to want to have that overhead light that's going to be, and I'll just put this little rectangle here so that you can see where I think the, and so if we, all right, so if we fly a light over the middle of the set like this, that gives us the basic illumination that we need. And then we're going to be bringing a 1K in through the window here. Okay, because the blinds will be pretty much closed, and we want this to blow out. So what we're going to try to accomplish is we want to go with all right, hold on. What was that? Sorry. And so this light, we're gonna overexpose it, and what that does for us is it gives us some protection, so that if the angle is such that we can actually see through the slats, all we see is overexposure. Does that you follow?
Yeah.
And that way we don't have to worry about some sort of a compositing situation, or putting some sort of maybe a translite or whatever, which we don't have and don't have the way to create. And so that also gives it our motivating light source. Questions about that?
No, that's good.
No.
And then so what that does is then that becomes the key for the person in this side. And I'm not sure how how she wants to situate them, but that becomes the key here. And then what we may need is maybe just some bounce over here on the fill side of our talent, right? And then some sort of a backlight will be coming down over the top of the flat, right? We'll bring in some sort of a light to come off the flat to give us the backlighting here, right? And then this can also serve as the key for the talent in this chair over here, and then we can do a similar bounce, or even a small instrument over here to bring up the fill on this side. Do you follow?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the most part.
We'll replicate the same backlight setup using something flying this over the top of the set here on the train car. Okay. So as far as the lighting setup, I think that's pretty simple in terms of what we've got going. Now we'll have to obviously tweak it and dial it in when we get there. There are a couple of other things that I'm going to be working with tomorrow with our special effects team. The first thing is we need to replicate the motion of the train. Okay. And so, you know, the train has a rocking motion, right? And since we don't really have any way of rocking our set or putting it on springs or whatever, there's a platform that I've used before that I built for some scenes that I had to film inside of a subway car that was not moving. And so it's basically a platform that's on super heavy duty bungee cords on a frame that we mount the camera on it. And before we start shooting, we start rocking the platform, and it starts rocking left to right on the bungee cords. And it's a natural swaying motion that gives it a really believable appearance of it being on a train, of the train rocking action. Right. And so what's going to happen tomorrow is the special effects team and the camera team will be working on getting that ready to go and doing some practice with it to make sure that we get the motion correct so that it's believable. Right. You guys follow how that's going to work?
Yeah.
And then the other thing that we're going to do is we're going to have somebody offset here. With what I call a branchioloris. And that's going to be nothing more than some sort of an obstruction, whether it's an actual tree branch or whether we use something else that on a random but continuing basis, they're going to pass it in front of the light source, which will cause the light to have shadows and give the feeling of motion outside the window. Right? You follow that?
Yeah.
And so a combination of the moving platform that we're going to be shooting from and the shadows cast by the branchioloris passing in front of the lamp of the lighting instrument will give the feeling that that there's actual motion there and that we're inside of a train car. And I know it doesn't sound like it right now, but it's actually a pretty effective way of selling the shot. And so we're going to work on that tomorrow with the special effects and the camera team so that we don't have to spend a lot of time on set on the 5th, you know, going through the rehearsal of that particular part of it. Because if it's not done right, then it's going to look stupid. And we don't want to spend an hour trying to get the feel of it down before we can actually start shooting some stuff and get it in the can. Right? Questions about that?
No.
All right. So, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts in terms of that attack for how to film this scene?
I think that's a good setup.
Okay. Was that Jeremy?
That was me. Andre? Yeah, I think that's a good setup.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's very well covered.
Okay. And so I think that's, you know, essentially all there is to this particular scene, other than making sure that we get the performance out of the cast that we're hoping for. Just a note on that as well. Everybody in speaking roles have already accepted. Crystal is in the process of sending out deal memos to get everybody locked in on their deal memos and get the paperwork started to get them paid. In terms of the non-speaking roles, almost everybody, I think there are 4 people right now that have not responded. 3 haven't responded. 1 has said no thank you, but everybody else in the non-speaking roles have said yeah, they'll be happy to do a bit extra, non-speaking extra, whatever. Whether it's on the only time that we're in the studio that we're going to need extras will be in the final church scene with woman number 1 with the baby for the final baby sacrifice. She said yes. And most of the extras we filled with current Oxnard students. So
what about the twins, dude?
Yeah, they're in, man.
Okay,
they're in. Cool. Yeah, they're definitely in. So the twins are on board. We can talk a little bit more tomorrow in class about how we're going to utilize that. We're not going to be needing them until our day out at Paramount, but it's definitely something we can think about how we're going to incorporate it in the shot. I think it's going to be a really cool little touch. So, but in terms of cast, yeah, we're pretty much locked in. Luke is on board. I'm going to try to schedule some time this week when we can do his life cast and do a final fitting, or at least do a measurement to get to make sure that the final fitting works. But we're pretty much on track with our cast. We're set. Okay, and so between Luke and oh goodness, Katarina, I think we've got a really believable brother and sister pair between Kat and Luke. Did you guys get a chance to look at the new Pink script?
I haven't yet. Was that in the email?
Yeah, I sent an email with the Pink. We're on Pink pages now, and there's an additional. Hold on. There's an additional character that we added, Eliza Marchand, and she's a saloon girl. If you remember, we had talked about one of the problems we had identified with the story was a concern over not understanding the role that Zeb Whatley had, and the fact that the lead character loses his mind after seeing the monster.
Right.
And so there's an addition in the saloon now where, after Zeb Whatley is taken away, the saloon girl approaches Von Ensign, and there's a brief dialogue there that helps to explain a little bit about what happened to Zeb and about how the same fate awaits Von Ensign if he doesn't get out of town. I've already reached out to Whitney. She was the blonde, the last one that came in for the audition.
Yeah, she was good too.
Yeah, she's accepted it. I think she'll be great in that role. I think she's got a great look for it, and I think she's got the chops to do that role. So I think that should bring us pretty close to everything that we wanted to do in terms of making the story tighter. So when you get a chance to take a look at that, make sure that you discard any previous versions of the script. We're on Pink pages now. And so from here on out, everything will be based on those Pink pages. There were some minor changes. I added a little bit of dialogue to Silas Beauchamp in the church scene where they're talking about getting rid of the newspaper lady and Von Ensign. But other than that, that's the only real change that the writers and I have made to the script. So we should be pretty much locked in at this point.
Cool.
Okay. So once you get a chance to read it, send me some feedback if you think you think it works or doesn't work, or we need to maybe add even a little bit more. I don't want to go too much because, of course, we want to make sure this is something that we can film while we're out there at Paramount. We don't want to get it too overwhelming. Thoughts?
Sounds good.
All right, Andre, any thoughts?
No, I'm just excited for tomorrow.
Yeah, well, we've got tomorrow. You and the directors and I will, obviously, we'll talk more with Karen, since it's her scene that we're going to be shooting. But we'll do some last minute coordination and try to get everything ready to go so that we don't have anything that's outstanding for Monday. So all we got to do is come in and just start shooting. Your AD is going to be Rebecca, and so I'm going to work with her to get the call sheet set ready to go, and so that we can get that out Sunday night next week. Most of the class has put in for their preferences, so I will be identifying the roles tonight so that tomorrow in class everybody will know what they're going to do and everybody can work their positions tomorrow. Like I said, the camera team and the special effects people are going to work to make sure that we've got we got some of the motion and the actions down, and the camera team is going to build the camera so that they can get some practice doing that, so we're not spending 2 hours trying to get our camera built. Audio team will do last minute once over with the audio, and you know, that's kind of the plan of operations for tomorrow. I'm still trying to arrange for a full table read using Google Hangout. It's just kind of tough with all the cast members, so I'm trying to coordinate that. If that happens, what we'll do is just a hangout like this, where anybody in the cast can just log in from home. And it's not as good as, you know, sitting around a real table doing a table read, but it's awful tough to get everybody all the way up there to Oxnard to be able to do a live table read, as much as I would love to do that. So that's sort of where we stand on that. Any thoughts? All right. And so the study scene, that's Karen's as well, yes?
Study.
Yeah, the study next week. Not next week, the 12th.
Yeah, that's her scene as well.
We're doing scene number 1, which is the first scene of the show.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be her.
Yeah, that's hers too. So there's not really any there's no reason to go over that right now since she's not here. We could actually attack some of that tomorrow in class when I meet with you guys. That way we can kind of knock that one out. So I won't even go ahead and put the overhead up. I'll bring it tomorrow with me, and you guys can take a look at it from there. Any thoughts? I'm not going to keep you guys much longer because I just wanted to go over this just so you guys had an idea. Andres, what was the position you applied for tomorrow? I mean, for this week?
I believe it was camera operator.
Camera operator, yeah. All right. So one of the things, having seen this overhead, I think that'll be very helpful for you so that you'll know sort of in advance where our camera positions are going to be in general. And so you'll have a kind of an idea. And we'll start out here on the master shot. And then I'm not sure whether we're going to go to the left over the shoulder or the right over the shoulder. It's going to depend on how the lighting is finally plays out. Okay.
Should I show up class sooner?
No, you don't have to. Not tomorrow. No, tomorrow we'll just start at the normal 1:30. And then, I mean, you're welcome to show up early if you want, but it's not necessary. You know, the following week, maybe, just so we can make sure we get the camera built on time so that we can start rolling right away. But tomorrow we'll just go with the normal time.
Okay.
All right. So Crystal, for you, UPM, I gave you those deal memos, right? Both for the paid actors as well as for the students, right?
Yeah.
How are we doing with those?
I'm looking through all of the paperwork because it is there's a lot of like these agreements and stuff, but I'm sending all of that to each person, right? No. As listed in the other email, right?
Right. Now, have you looked at that Excel spreadsheet or that Google Sheets sheet that I sent you? Okay, so if you go down that list, each of the characters that we've cast, you'll see a column where it says speaking or non-speaking, right? The speaking roles are the ones that are actual characters. The non-speaking are the extras, right? Mm-hmm. And then in the in one of the columns, it'll say student or not, right? Yeah. The students, there's an agreement that I sent you that you can fill out in PDF that is for student actors. I think it says student actor agreement or student actor deal memo, something like that. Okay. And that one gets sent to the students who we've hired, which should be identified in that spreadsheet. Right. And most of those are extras, but there are a couple of them that are actual speaking roles. But because of the way the college system works, we can't give the students a stipend because they're enrolled in classes. Right. But the actors that are not students, that are in speaking roles, will get the actual deal memo that says you're getting paid $15 a day as a stipend for gas and travel. Okay.
Okay.
And then the extras who are not student. I know this is very confusing, which is why I tried to be as clear in my email as possible. So refer to that email. But if they're extras, meaning they don't have a speaking role and they're not students, they're still not getting paid, but there's a specific there's an agreement there that I sent you that's called an extra agreement.
Yeah.
Which that goes to the extras that are not students, right? Because we have to have a special agreement for the students because they are students. and then we have to have an agreement with the extras who are not getting any pay at all, but they're not students. Do you follow me?
Yeah.
And then the other paperwork, everybody gets a copy of the emergency information form, which includes things like any allergies, dietary restrictions, or medical conditions that we need to be aware of, right?
Yeah.
That goes to everybody, student, non-student, paid, unpaid, everybody, right?
Yeah.
And then a copy of the pink pages of the script, right? So everybody has an updated copy of the script, right? You follow that?
Yes.
And so that's essentially what we need to get done. And I'd love to have all of that stuff out to them. I know that they may not get it back to you, but I'd like to have all of that stuff out by Wednesday, so that we can start collecting up all of these deal memos and get everybody locked in. The other thing that you need to send the paid non-student actors is that Ventura County vendor thing, because they got to fill it out in order for them to cut them a check. Okay. So that goes to any non-student who's getting paid, right? Okay. I know it's really, really confusing. Just reread that email that I sent, and I think that might make it a little clearer.
No, yeah.
Then, are you gonna stop by tomorrow during class?
No, yeah, I can be there for
if you want to stop by tomorrow during class, and then that way, if you have any last minute questions after you've had a chance to digest all of it, then we can get that stuff out. Okay?
Do you have to keep track of like the students and their roles that they've been doing, like when they participate in like every scene? Do you have to?
What is after we shoot. So, for example, next Monday when we shoot, there will be a packet of paperwork that will be put in your. If you're not on set or if you're not in class when we wrap on the 5th, the script supervisor and the AD will collect up all of the paperwork, and that will go in your UPM. It'll go in your folder there outside your office door. And what you'll do is then you can start filing that stuff, and that will include a list of what everybody's position was for that particular scene.
Okay.
So you don't really need to keep a separate listing of what everybody does, because that'll be on the call sheet. That'll be part of the paperwork. So if you don't need to do anything extra that way. Okay. The only thing we might want to do is if somebody doesn't show up and we've got to reassign positions, then we may have to do some other stuff. Okay. But that's not going to be a problem. Everybody's going to show up every day, right? Yeah. Okay. So other than that, do you have any other questions, Crystal?
Not at this moment.
Okay. Yeah. Again, I sent you my text number. If you get into a real problem, just text me and I'll try to answer it. And that way we can avoid any delays. Okay. And then however you want to start doing, like paperwork in that filing cabinet, that's up to you, whatever works best for you.
No, yeah, I have the stuff starting form.
Okay. Yeah. And once the actors start sending back those signed deal memos and, all of the stuff starts to come back in, then if you want to start a folder, we can print it out at school. I don't want you to print it out on your own printer or anything. Okay. We can get it printed at school. That way you don't have to worry about printing it out on your printer, as long as we've got a digital copy, and we'll make a hard copy.
Okay.
Okay. So Andres, Jeremy, any questions from you guys, from the directors?
No, just to be clear, we only have one camera, right?
That's it. We've got one camera.
So we got to shoot and move it around.
Yeah, well, even if we had more than one camera, we do it as a single setup. We shoot multiple setups. We don't shoot more than one camera at a time ever, even if we have to, just because I prefer to do it this way. Now, there are certain circumstances where I am in favor of doing multiple cameras. For example, if we had a really complicated effects shot where we were going to blow something up, then I'd have a whole bunch of cameras that way, because that's a one-shot deal. We can only do one take because we can only blow it up once. But generally speaking, we shoot one setup, we move our camera, shoot another setup, move our camera, shoot another setup, and that's pretty much the way we do it.
Okay. Makes sense.
So when you're thinking about the shots for your scenes, be thinking in those terms, that it's going to be one camera position per shot that we need.
Okay. Yeah.
Andres, any questions?
No, not at the moment.
All right, guys. Thank you for taking the time to meet up. I will talk to you all tomorrow in class.
All right. See you then.
All right, guys. I will again. I'll post this on the website if you want to take a look at it. Other than that, I'll see you guys. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
All right. Thanks. You too.
Bye-bye.